Alright, I caved. I bought the Final Fantasy XVI Rising Tide DLC, so I still didn't buy Echoes of the Fallen, and I was telling myself, don't spend money on this, and the reason I was saying that was because I enjoyed FF16, but not enough to spend more money on it, especially because Square Enix loves to do this, right? They throw all this challenging, even better content once the game is already out, and they just drop DLC, and it's like, wow, well, this is the best part. So I feared that would happen with this, but my chat really wanted me to play it. Again, I did enjoy Final Fantasy 16. I was interested in Leviathan, and this knight boss battle from the trailers intrigued me, so I pulled the trigger. So what did I think of it? Is it worth it?
Now, first, what does this DLC offer? Now, for $20, I actually think it offered a fantastic amount of content. You're going to get full 2 new Eikon abilities, which basically means 2 new play styles, around 8 new abilities to play around with. You get a Coliseum type mode where you're going to be going through hordes of enemies and you're going to get a bunch of actual good rewards for them. I also love the pixel art that you could see as you go through the stages. You're going to get a few new enemies. The Tonberry mini boss was actually pretty fun, even though it wasn't that hard. You have the Timekeeper Night boss, which was my favorite boss in the entire game, and one of my favorite bosses of the year. I will spend a good section talking about that. And then you're going to go into the Leviathan battle, which is a whole giant Eikon cinematic battle that you would get in the base game, but longer and much harder. It's also my favorite Eikon battle of the game as well. And you can see a pattern, right? All my favorite content is now in the DLC again. So it's very much a love-hate thing, kind of with Square Enix, but the DLC does offer a lot of content, to be honest, especially for the $20 price tag. And then if you do the season pass, you're going to get both DLCs. I did not play Echoes of the Fallen. I didn't think it was worth it necessarily. But here, if you enjoyed base game Final Fantasy 16, like you loved it, you didn't have many problems with it, you would love this. I could totally recommend it. But it even surprised me in a good amount of ways. And let me get into the reasons why. Now, as much as I wanted this for the base game, they did succeed in making some crazy boss battles in terms of being more challenging, right? Final Fantasy 16 has absurdly awesome boss battles, but a lot of people complained about the difficulty, and in my opinion, rightly so. You can't have these intimidating, crazy bosses, but they're swinging their fists at you at 2 miles per hour. You know, I'm playing New Game Plus right now just to test out all the new abilities from the DLC on the base game, and I remembered why I tend to roast the game a little bit. And it's because when you're fighting a lot of these bosses, they are slow, dude. They don't have many moves for you to have to learn. And when they do swing things at you, it's like hard to get hit at times. Like this tiger, for example, oh my gosh. Like if you get hit by this guy, I'm going to question your gameplay. No, I'm just kidding. But in the DLC, they definitely ramp it up. My favorite boss of this entire game, the Timekeeper, this night boss that turns water into a bunch of different weapons. It's crazy. They turned the dial up 20 miles more per hour. He's going way faster, and there's probably triple the amount of moves you have to learn from him. This was a big one. I feel like there wasn't enough move sets from the enemies or bosses through 16. This guy has a lot. If you're playing this guy on Final Fantasy mode or even Ultimaniac mode, there is a good chance you will die. And there's just a lot to learn from him.
And then the fight just looks beautiful. He's using water to morph all these different weapons, and Clive dodging back and forth with the new iconic abilities you have. It's very, very fun. I redid this entire mission just so I could get back to this fight, which is another kind of mini complaint I have with the game. I hate that you have to go through the whole mission again if you want to fight a certain boss, but that's a whole separate thing. Then we get on to the Leviathan boss battle, and it was my favorite. Now, the thing with it is way harder than any of the other Eikon battles. I saw a whole bunch of people raging on Twitter. I love the challenge. The thing is, again, they buffed the amount of moves this guy has. He probably has double the amount of moves you have to learn compared to any of the other base game Eikon battles. The one problem I had with this was you get to a DPS check in the middle, a damage check, and it's absurdly hard. They want you to almost be perfect. Now, I wouldn't have a problem with this, right? But I would have preferred it on the first or third phase, because right here is kind of the triumphant moment. Like, yes, he's supposed to be ramping up his giant super move, but it's also kind of the phase where Clive is supposed to push back, and after dying like 7 times on this, I got annoyed. I was like, okay, dude, let me continue the fight. So it kind of broke the tension, and
almost everyone I talked to died the most on this one DPS check. So I feel like it shouldn't have been as hard as the first or third phase because of the story implications and just what is going on in that moment. But again, I'm not going to complain about a challenge, especially when I wanted this from the base game. So yeah, a little sloppily balanced, but regardless, Leviathan was an awesome fight. And I enjoyed the whole story around this too. It's nothing insane. You basically get called to go check out this Eikon, and the problem with this Eikon is Ultima has no use for him because he's a child, and this child is stuck in time. So you're basically trying to release him from this time capsule, so you say, and it is pretty interesting. I can't lie, I enjoyed the story. Joshua and Jill probably say a total of 2 lines. They don't do much, but it's still nice having them along and seeing the whole cast again. I like the way this did side quests too. You kind of just get sent out to go do mini bosses every time you do one of these side quests, and there's a good amount of them. They let you upgrade the shop and pretty much learn about a few new NPCs in this new area. The graphics of the area is also beautiful. I think they heard the complaints about the game being obnoxiously gray, dark, and dreary, because right here you have a lot of blue, a lot of bright green and sunlight. It's really pretty to explore this area and a welcome addition to the map. Like, I'm gonna enjoy coming here and just smacking enemies for sure. So yeah, overall my favorite piece of Final Fantasy 16 content. Now, while the DLC is definitely my favorite, I still enjoyed this whole experience of this game, you know? It's just one of those, you kind of play through it and it's hard to go back, and I wanted it to have a lot of replay value, but the Colosseum mode they added with this DLC is going to help with that a lot, and overall, I'm going to go back and fight this Timekeeper boss a lot. I will probably try to no damage him. I just thought it was so cool. I was like laughing through my stream because it was just that much fun. So definitely worth the $20. Again, even if you're not like me and you didn't have as many criticisms with the base game, you will love this. Like, it's just awesome. And again, Clive, all the VAs did fantastic. Like, it's always great seeing these characters. That was also one of the great things, is I never had a problem with the cast or anything. So it was great seeing Clive, Jill, Joshua, and all the new characters. This has now happened with a few of Square Enix's titles though. They tend to drop the most challenging and frankly the best content in their DLCs once the game drops. It's supposed to have an insane base game experience and then additions onto that with DLC. And it's not saying Final Fantasy 16 isn't a great game. It's that they mostly try to fix things in their DLC. Like if you go back to Kingdom Hearts 3, a lot of that DLC was fixing fan complaints. And here, it almost feels like that as well with the way they balance these bosses. Like, people complained and they're like, okay, we're going to throw the challenge here because it's the DLC and maybe not as many casuals will play it, or you don't really know what their thinking is, but it's literally the same thing that happened to KH3. And in general, Square Enix DLC just tends to have some things that aren't there in the base game where it's like, okay, this should have just been here. I remember Integrade also gave Yuffie a lot of faster moving abilities, which Clive was told to be very slow in Remake. So again, I really loved the DLC, but yeah, Square Enix, y'all need to stop doing this. Make your base games challenging. You don't need to be scared, or just balance it correctly. Like, there's no reason to lock 16's hard mode out from the beginning of the game. So yeah, totally recommend this. It surprised me with pretty much the amount of content it had and the quality of the content in this DLC. So yeah, great time. Glad I played it. I know I did cave, but if the content is good, I will try it out, you know? Maybe I'll get to Echoes of the Fallen. Not sure. It doesn't seem like there's enough for me there, but I hope you guys enjoyed the review of Final Fantasy 16 The Rising Tide, and let me know if you're playing it for yourself. If you enjoy it, did you get your ass kicked on the DPS check of Leviathan? Alright guys, I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next video.